the lighting. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, the Pretty Bookish channel, where we talk all things books all the time. As you probably notice, different location. We're outside. We're in Mpumalanga. I'm trying to give you guys a bit of a different vibe today. By the way, riddle, did I cart 21 red books all the way to Mpumalanga just so that I could shoot this video here and give you guys a bit of razzle dazzle? Yes, I did, because I love you guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel below, and like, and let me know in the comments what you think of this video, if you like any of these books, if you've read any of them. As you can see from the description below, I'm going to be doing my November wrap-up today. Full disclaimer, I actually shot this whole video yesterday. I had 75 million technical difficulties. My camera charger died. The sound went haywire. And also, I was wearing a low-cut top, and then when I was watching the video back, I noticed that like my bra was peeking out. It was a whole thing. So I just thought, you know what? I don't want my boobs out on the internet, so let me do this again. Oh, guys, I discovered this thing at Woolies. This cider from Little Wolf called Virgin Apple Nectar. It is delicious. Like, it is so good. It's non-alcoholic cider. Oh my god, guys, it's so refreshing. It's so delicious. Like, I'm full-time obsessed with it. Okay, let's get started. I have quite a few books to talk about. The first book that I'm going to talk about is the one that I finished, like, the most recent. Is the one that I'm also really disappointed about. I have a couple of big disappointments this month, but this one I was really disappointed about because I was so excited to read it. You guys saw on my Instagram when I got it, I was like, ah! And then I finished it yesterday, and that is Ties That Tether by Jane Igaro. It's published by Berkeley. It's a contemporary romance novel. Basic plot, her name is Azere. Azere is a Nigerian-born Canadian immigrant girl who grew up in Canada. Long story short, her dad died, and on his deathbed, she made him a promise that she would not date or marry any man who wasn't of her same culture. You know, perpetuating the culture, making sure that as they immigrated to Canada, they don't lose the essence of their culture and whatever. And then she falls in love with this white man named Raphael. And so now she's like struggling with that. I'm going to probably do a full-length video. I might actually even shoot that today, but I want to do a full-length video on this book because I have a lot to say, and there's a couple of things that I found really problematic that I'm not a huge fan of. So I want to take a second to really think it through before I actually talk about it. But I will say, if I had to give it a quick rating, I would say 3 stars, if not 2.75. And I know that's like, oh, and it hurts me to say that because also the cover is beautiful, but I didn't love it as much as I wanted to love it. And there's a couple of things that I really didn't like. So look out for that. Probably I'll mention some of them in my actual Instagram review, but look out for the video on this. So yeah, this is the one that I actually just finished. Okay guys, so the next book that I want to talk about that I also read this month was City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Finally read this book. So it's on my list of books. You know how I said this before, I'm on this kick for the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021. Actually, end of 2020 is my goal. There's a bunch of series that I've seen on Bookstagram, like City of Brass and Ember and the Ashes, Never Nights, A Darker Shade of Magic, Warcross, all these series that I've been really thinking about reading. And my goal was to read all the book ones. Because I want to see, so that I can walk into 2021 having a clear understanding of which series that have been out already that I'm interested in continuing with, and which ones I'm just going to leave alone and not let them stress me. Because A Darker Shade of Magic is on my bedside table now, so I'm going to read that. Never Night is also up next. I've done an Ember in the Ashes, as you know, I'm obsessed. Warcross I've read as well. So City of Brass was one of those ones. First of all, also, cover, gorge. My verdict, I really enjoyed this book. I think I would give it like a 3.5, maybe 4 stars. It's very, very good. I didn't understand at first why people said it was difficult to read, because when I was reading it, the first like 100 pages. Like, guys, this is so easy to read. The writing style is so, it's clean. It's not clean. It's fluid. It moves. It's like, it's easy. It's an easy to read kind of writing style, if that makes sense. But the thing that complicates it is the actual story. There is a lot going on. There is so much going on. I would describe this book as chaotic in terms of like the actual plot and the actual dynamics between the characters. It's very chaotic. It's one of those stories where, because there's so many different ethnic groups or different races discussed, and there's so many different conflicts and different histories, and everybody hate everybody, it's difficult for you to like really keep your eye on the, you know what I mean? And one of the things about this book that like frustrates me kind of, but is also kind of good, but low-key frustrates me, is that I have no idea at this point, after reading this whole book, whose team I'm on. Don't know who the good guys are. Don't know who the bad guys are. Don't know whose team I'm supposed to be on. I don't know who I'm supposed to be supporting. You know how like in an Emma and the Ashes, very clear that the Empire is trash and we're supposed to be with Team Scholars. I have got no idea here what's going on. Everybody has done something crappy to everybody else. Every one of these ethnic groups, or one of these the jinn and the diver, all of them have missed, and the humans and whatever, they've all done nonsense to each other, historically speaking. So like this animosity runs deep. Not really sure whose team I'm supposed to be on, which I guess is, some people like that. Personally, I'm not a fan. I like to know who I'm supposed to be hating so I can go on hating them, but it is what it is. But all in all, really good book, solid book. I would definitely recommend this. If you like fantasy that's like got a magical element, but that's also like, it's really rich and really cultural, and it's like, you can see that she draws on a lot of different inspirations. Like I would say like Middle Eastern mythologies and histories, if that makes sense. So definitely City of Brass, highly recommend also. The next book that I read was A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. I've gushed about an Emma and the Ashes so much. This series is perfection. This book was heartbreaking perfection. It was really, really good. It hurt a lot. A lot happened here where I was just like, Sabaa, please don't do it. Like I'm reading A Reaper at the Gates right now, and the only thought in my head is, I'm going to need you guys to let Elias be happy. I'm going to need you guys to let Elias just live in peace, because he deserves better. What is happening to him in all of these books is just, it's a lot. Like, my boy Elias is going through it. So, but all in all, 5-star, love this series, A Torch Against the Night. I probably will do a video of this entire series when I finish this entire series, because I want to be able to really unpack it. And right now I'm still like in the meat of it. So, and the fourth book, the final book in the quartet, just came out. I think it's called The Sky and the Storm, just came out. So I'm ready. I'm just waiting for, I think, this cover to come up, because, honey, those other covers, they are not it. So A Torch Against the Night, loved it, loved it, loved it. The next book, didn't love it as much, is Cinderella is Dead by Callan Bayron. This is a YA book that is kind of like a retelling. It's not a retelling, but it's an expansion / retelling of the story of Cinderella. So basically the plot is that what's her name, Sophia, lives 200 years after you know, the whole glass slipper ball, Prince Charming falls in love with her, whatever. 200 years after that, it's now some sort of dystopian Handmaid's Tale hyper patriarchal society, where instead of the ball being something cute and fun, it's like every girl who, as soon as you turn 16, you have to attend the ball. If you don't get chosen by a man, you don't get a man who wants to marry you, you basically are either sold into slavery, or you become basically, can I say this without ruining it? But, or something really bad happens to you, because I can't tell you what it is, because otherwise it ruins it kind of for people who still want to read this. All in all, such a great concept. It was such a good idea, and a lot of this book would have been so good, except the execution wasn't all there for me. I think personally that the writer bit off a bit more than she could chew. I think it felt haphazardly slapped together towards the end. Like, there was so much in the final scenes that was being what's the word I'm looking for? Exposed, or that was being told to the reader, that is so important, but it was like some of the stuff was like in 2 or 3 lines or 2 or 3 pages that should have been a whole chapter, because like it was important. And I also personally feel like the story would have been better if it was written when Cinderella was still alive. If it had been a situation where after the ball, directly after the ball, Cinderella had been like, oh crap, this ain't it no more. Do you know what I mean? But like, I don't know. I just didn't really 100% gel with this book. I just thought there was a couple of things that were not great. I'm still going to write a review on this on my Instagram. I'm just trying to find a way to do the review without doing spoilers. But I would give it like a 3, I guess. But I will say, I hope Kellen Bayron writes a series of these, doing all the other um fairy tales. And I think she might, because she did reference some of them in the book. So I'm hoping this becomes a series, and I'm hoping book 2, 3, whatever, she kind of fills in the gaps, because I think this is a debut novel, and if it is, it's really good for a debut. I just thought there were a couple of things that I would have changed. But anyway, Cinderella is Dead. Also, still the best cover I've ever seen. Okay, next I read I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. I thought this book was good. I just have 2 points about this book. On the one hand, it's good. If you are starting your reading about racial justice, social justice journey, it's good. If you are a Christian who's particularly in your faith and you want to read an account of somebody. So basically, Austin Channing Brown writes from the perspective of, I think she works in the Christian NGO space. So her Christianity and her faith is really deeply embedded in the way that she talks about racism and race and whatever, which is fine. I'm just not particularly religious, so it didn't really resonate with me from that angle. Also, it's not like the deep theory. And that's the other thing I want to say. If you're someone who's like, you've been reading Audre Lorde, you've read hood feminism, you've been reading Why I Don't Talk to White People About Race, or like How to Argue with Racism, if you've read a lot of racial justice work, this book is going to feel very entry level to you. I don't think it's going to do anything wow for you. It's not like elucidating like any like new concept. So I think if you want to start reading about racial justice, is a good starting point. But if you're like me and you've read a lot of these books, it doesn't really do much. It's good, but it's not like wow. Do you know what I mean? Then the next book that I read, actually on that point as well, let me talk about another book that I read this month. I finally read Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. And this is the point that I'm making, is that Audre Lorde is basically like the godmother of Black race theory, of Black queer race theory specifically. So if you've read things like Sister Outsider, this book, that I'm Still Here, doesn't hit the same, because Audre Lorde's book, it goes deeper. Do you know what I mean? So you get the sense that like, this is reading Audre Lorde, I think for me, is the level I'm at right now in terms of race theory. I'm not at the introductory level. I'm at the level where I want to read works like this that unpack things at a deeper level. So with Sister Outsider, I also want to say that it's so interesting to read this book at this point, because I've read so much racial justice work. And reading this book, the first 100 pages or so, I was thinking, why is everybody so hype about Audre Lorde? Like, she says all the things everybody else says. And then it just clicked to me that, like, my chronology is off. Audre Lorde said all of this stuff before everybody else said it. So when I thought about it like that, I thought I was reframing, like, hood feminism and I Don't Want to Talk About White People About Race and Thick and all these other books within the context of, they would have read Sister Outsider. They would have read, these race theorists would have read Audre Lorde. Bell Hooks would have read Audre Lorde. And when you think about it in that context, you realize that this is brilliant. This is literary heritage. This is one of the greats. This is like reading. This is like ancestry. This is literary ancestry. So I just thought, I can't say any bad things about this book. She makes a lot of really good points that you see, that resonate with a lot of what I've already read, but she takes it one step further, because I think as a Black lesbian, like, her take on a lot of racial justice issues is one step deeper because of the multiple kinds of oppressions that she experienced and that she has an insight on. So yeah, Sister Outsider, definitely highly recommend if you're looking to read Audre Lorde. By the way, I'm so glad I finally read Audre Lorde, because it was getting embarrassing. Roxane Gay is next, but I finally read Audre Lorde, and so I'm no longer a book embarrassment. I am on my way to being a fully fleshed, and I read Octavia Butler this year, so I'm on my way to being a fully fleshed out person. Great. Okay, so the next book that I read, what am I going to talk about next? Let's go with Warcross by Mary Lou that I actually just finished recently. So fun. This book was really, really, really fun. It was one of those books that was really entertaining. It was a great ride. It's basically set, the basic plot is that Amika is a bounty hunter and a gamer, and there's this game called Warcross, which is basically like this virtual reality game that's taken over the whole world, that everyone is obsessed with in the world. And the owner and the creator, Hideo, he hires Amika to come and she tracked down a hacker who's trying to hack into the game because they don't know why he's trying to hack into the game. And then she basically then gets co-opted into the championship of Warcross and tries to find out what happened. So you know all these like fun adventure movies where like the what's the word I'm looking for? The not the down and out person, but like the down and out, what's the word? Guys, there's a phrase for this, a specific phrase. Okay, I can't think of it right now. I'll type it if I think of it. But like she's a down and out person who's trying, guys, like literally not being able to think of this word. It's really gonna drive me crazy. Okay, I can't think of it. Oh god, it's like really frazzled me. So basically, she's now in this game with all these professional gamers. It's really fun. What I will say though, as a con, is the ending. The ending for me, I get why a lot of people love this ending, and I get why she did it that way to set up for Wildcard, which is book 2 of the series. Personally, I wouldn't have done it that way. It's the ending of Warcross is making me slightly less inclined to read Wildcard, because it's the ending creates the kind of stress I personally don't need. Also, this naked cover is just like, it's so gorgeous. I just want to show it to everybody all the time. Anyway, it creates the kind of stress that I don't need. So we'll see. I don't know. I'll see if I end up finding it on sale like I found this one. I probably will get it. It's not a priority, but I suspect I will finish this series in 2021 at some point. Okay, next we have Little Women by Louise May Alcott that I finally read. It's cute. It's really nice. It's not Pride and the Prejudice, honey. It's not Sense and Sensibility, honey. I'm actually just going back to Jane Austen because I love Jane Austen so much that I was thinking to myself, I need to read more of this kind of old-timey British, but no. This was okay, but I'm not the right age group for this. Like, I think this book has a lot of like life lessons and things that you need to learn or whatever about being a good person, and I feel like I'm fully cooked as a human at this point, and like I'm already kind of an asshole. So it's too late for this kind of book. Also, I watched the movie, which was pretty good. I also just think one, you guys love Timothée Chalamet for no reason. He's alright, but he ain't all that. Also, the movie, I think it would have been better as a play. That's another thing that I was thinking when I was watching that. It would have been a great play, more so than as a movie. Anyway, not that you care, but that's what I think. The next one that I read was Writers and Lovers by Lily King. Very surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. Very surprised. It's one of those books that I didn't think I was gonna like, and I actually really enjoyed it. It's about, guys, I don't remember any characters' names. I'm not gonna lie to you. Casey. She's like 31, aspiring writer. Her life is in shambles a bit. She meets two guys. One has his shit together. One, he's just like one of those guys who you have a lot of passion with, but then he's a bit flaky. And so this book is about her trying to figure out herself and her writing and trying to believe in herself, all those kinds of things, and also trying to choose between these two guys. It's just a nice, light, it's kind of funny. It's just a really fun read. I enjoyed it. It was a great break from a lot of the books. The ending, I liked the way it ended, but I didn't expect it to end that way. But low-key, when I was done, I was just like, yeah, no, this was the correct ending. If you've read this book, you know what I mean. But like, I was like, Lily King did it the right way. So, Writers and Lovers, really glad I finally read that. Next, we have The Lost Book of White by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. It's the second book in the Eldest Curses. I got sent this by Jonathan Ball Children, and I'm so happy that now I'm up to date with Magnus and Alec. I thought Red Scrolls of Magic was better than the second book. This book was really, I mean, Cassandra Clare is a great writer. The books are always fun, a lot of adventure. However, I would have preferred to have book two have a lot more of Magnus and Alec just at home with their son Max doing like domestic stuff and not just full on saving the world from jump. Like I needed more domesticity and less greater demons, if that makes sense. So other than that, I thought it was really good. And I was right when I said that this book, the ending, sets up definitely for a book three. I'm convinced there's going to be a book three. So, The Last Book of White, also glad I've read that finally. Next, what am I going to talk about? Oh, okay. So, I also read The State of Us by Sean David Hutchinson. It's cute. It's a queer YA book. Think Red, White, and Royal Blue. Think Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, similar thing. So these two boys, their parents are running for president. One is a Democrat, one is a Republican. One of them, the one whose parents are the Democrat, is gay, and then the other one, he's struggling with his sexuality and love and romance and cute teen stuff. There's also a bit of asexual discussion and asexual rep in this book that I found really interesting. It's not something I've ever really thought about, so this is a good book. It doesn't go that deep, but it does have references, so I thought that was quite cool. All in all, really cute. It was a cute 3.5 book. Red, White, and Royal Blue is still better, but this was a solid book. I enjoyed it as well. Next, I also have, this was one of my favorites this month. This was part of my nonfiction November reads, was The Address book by Dierdre Mask. 5-star book. This book was so interesting. Do you know what? I said before that like I've read a lot of racial justice book and social justice book. I love it when writers come at familiar topics from a completely different angle. So this book is What Street Addresses Reveal About Identity, Race, Wealth, and Power. So what Deirdre Mask essentially does is in like a couple of sections. One is about the development in relation to how development relates to street addresses, the origins of the street address, politics and street addresses, race and street addresses, and then class and status. It is fascinating. I thought this book was so good. It just, first of all, it's something that you take for granted that like you have a street address, that you live on like 27 Penelope Drive. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really think about the fact that that wasn't the case or everywhere in the world or all over. That wasn't the case historically, that street addresses emerged roughly at the same time and for the same function or purpose as when the nation state emerged. So I really found that interesting. My favorite chapters definitely were the ones that talked about Calcutta and basically talking about, and that was the development. It was one of the first 2 chapters talking about development and how it really brought to my mind something I don't think a lot of people think about, but like how much of a hurdle it is not to have a street address and how many resources you can't access and how much of a problem it is. And it's set in Calcutta, so it talks about people who live in slums and informal settlements and how basic things like getting a bank account and medical care and registering for school and getting a Woolies card, you can't do any of that stuff because all of the forms that you sign up for like everything require a street address. And it's something that was like, it was like a light bulb moment, because I thought you think about it, but you don't really think about how much of a privilege it is to have a street address where people can find you, where you can sign up for anything because the creditors and whatever will be able to find you. So I thought this was fascinating. I also really liked the chapter that talked about Haiti because I think it was apt in the kind of COVID situation. It was talking about how the concept of street addresses helps in when there's a breakout of a pandemic, and how in terms of locating people who are sick and like how medically and how in that context it really, really helps. So yeah, anyway, this book, really, really good. 5 out of 5, highly recommend. One of my favorite nonfictions of the year as well. The next book that I read, these were so cute, I'll talk about them together, was I finally read Heartstopper Volume 3, and then I also got sent Nick and Charlie, one of the novellas by Alice Oseman by JV Children, so thank you. These are adorable. They're as cute as they were. Nick and Charlie, and I just saw the poster for book 4. I can't believe Volume 4 is only coming out like in May. Like, that's really far, but I thought they were really cute. Like, Nick and Charlie are just like, they warm my heart. They're everything I needed when I read these two books. So love them, love them, love them. The next book, I'm not going to talk about because you saw it in my bottom 10 of romance books. I'm not going to waste a lot more breath talking about Undercover Bromance by Alyssa K. Adams. I'm just going to reiterate that Liv is the worst. And she doesn't deserve nice things. And that's all I have to say. I'm done with it. Like, no. Like, I can't stand Liv so much. I think of her as a real person. And, like, she really just gives me a headache. Like, I just can't. I can't deal with her at all. Okay. Next, we have another big disappointment this month. Conjuring Women by Afia Takora. If I had to describe this book in one word, I would say unfinished. But other than, okay, I'm going to talk about the cover first because it's beautiful, just to give you guys nice things first. Take a bit of honey with your pills. Now I'm going to give you guys the pills. This book was very, yeah, it's not finished. That's my opinion on this book. It's not finished. There was so much going on. There were so many narrative streams. Okay, so basically this book is set in 2 time zones. Like, they're like 30 years apart. One is during slavery, so on a plantation, and then the other one is post a civil war, after the abolition of slavery, on the same area where the plantation was. And it follows Rue, whose mother, Mabel, was a conjure woman, a healer woman, and so Rue also has that. And then there's in the village post Civil War, there's a baby who was born, black-eyed being. I think he's born, I think, like albino with black eyes or whatever. And everybody says, oh, it's a curse. And then a sickness hits the village, and then a bunch of babies start dying. And so everybody's now saying that it's Rue's fault. Then there's also Bra Abel, who's like a preacher man, like an evangelistic preacher man. Then there's Verena, who used to be the white slave master, who's now... Look, there's a lot going on. However, the big problem is that none of these narrative streams have anything to do with each other, in my opinion. And it's weird because all the characters in the second part of in the second chronological stream, so in the post-slavery stream, are present in the slavery stream, but nothing about these narratives connects. Nothing about the pre-slavery and the post-narrative makes sense together. It's so unfinished, and the last 30 pages is even worse. It's like it almost just ends, and you're just thinking, did the bookseller sell me a book that's got like 300 pages missing? What is happening here? You're thinking, is this book 1 in a series? Because that's the only way this makes sense. Because it just no. It didn't come together. The word I'm looking for, it wasn't weaved together. This is not a tale where you saw this happen. And I hate to compare people to Toni Morrison because I think it's really unfair to compare anyone. But you know how, like, Beloved, it's just weaved together perfectly. Everything just comes together, and the stories of the different characters are weaved together to create this beautiful tapestry. This is just pieces of yarn. Nothing is like woven together. So it's difficult to be like, oh, I love this book, because it's just like, if you love it, what do you love? Because, like, which characters were fully fleshed out to the sense where you could have a sense of them? I don't think any. So this was a big disappointment for me this month, because I was really excited to read it. You guys know I was so excited to read this book. So yeah, that was really upsetting. The next book was much better. I think this is probably my favorite, if not my top 3 YA books of 2020, is All the Things We Never Knew by Liara Tamani. Cover on fleek. Also giving me very Love and Basketball vibes, and it's one of my favorite movies, so I was also excited about that. It basically tells a story of 2 teenagers, Rex and Carly. And basically, they both play basketball. Carly wants to quit. Rex is like all he has because his dad... So his mom died giving birth to him, and his dad is like the super emotionally distant father. And it's just this book. She writes it in such a way that you like feel the uncertainty of youth. Do you know what I mean? Like those teen years where everything just feels... Where you feel everything so much bigger. and everything is just so life and death. Like, that's what you get from this book. It's just this overwhelming sense of emotion, especially Rex's character. Like, I felt my heart was like crying for him the entire time. I was just thinking, no, don't do this to Rex. Like, he's just like, her characters are so well written, especially Rex. Like, you just, they burrow into your heart. So I really, really like this book. I also love the ending of this book. It was such a realistic depiction of how life works, how things work. She didn't wrap everything up in a pretty bow, but she also left you satisfied. She left you happy. She left you feeling like, okay. But she didn't leave you with this like sappy, wrapped in a bow, everybody loves everybody. No, she left you with, it's complicated in its life, but we move, we persevere. You know what I mean? So I love this book. It was very, very good. The next book I'm going to talk about, I'm almost done. The next book I'm going to talk about is Fence, which is a graphic novel I discovered by C.S. Pacat, who wrote the Captive Prince series. I was Googling for queer graphic novels because you know how I feel about Heartstopper right now. So I'm on that kick right now. This came up, downloaded it. Oh, it didn't download it. Bought it. I literally, after I finished it, I put it down, opened my laptop, and I'm waiting for volume 2 and 3 because I've already ordered them. I'm excited to read them. This is so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's like, first of all, it's like the graphics are beautiful. But also, I'm obsessed with fencing. Since I watched The Parent Trap, I'm like, I love fencing. It's one of those sports where I'm just like, it just seems like so much fun. So this is also like one of those books that was so, so good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So far, there's no romance, but it's only volume 1, and I'm assuming there's like, I think there are 4 or 5 volumes already out, so I'm not worried. I'm excited. You know what? I'll give you guys a better update end of December because I probably would have read volume 2 and 3 by then, so I'll give you a better indication of what's happening. Then the other book I read this month was Snapped by Alexa Martin. Really enjoyed it. I don't have much to say. That whole series is really good. Great palate cleanser book. You know what? I love romance novels that include rock stars, professional athletes, billionaires. That's my trope. That's what I love. And Alexa Martin just writes such great characters, just such great romance stories. Like, it's just, I can't say anything bad about that book. It's really, really good. Solid 3.5. I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something just to be like something steamy and nice to read like now over the holiday break. The last book that I want to talk about is obviously The Pink Line by Gevisser, which was my favorite book that I read this month. Top 2 favorite nonfiction books that I've read this year. You can see it's heavily annotated. This book is incredibly well written. It is incredible. It is 5 or 10 out of 10 or whatever. I would highly recommend you get this book. It's one of those books where like, it's just, Gevisser does such a good job of balancing queer theory and conversations around gender and sexual identity with like real life stories of real people. And this book took him over a decade to write. And you can see in the sense that he talks about real people whose stories he follows, where he spoke to someone in 2002 and then he spoke to them again in 2000. Do you know what I mean? Like he follows up with people. It's not one of those books where there's personal stories where you get a snippet of someone's life in one particular moment. He actually tracks and follows people, and you can see that he's developed friendships with some of these people. And I just think it's just such a superbly well written book. It gives a really great overview and actually really in-depth understanding of the global conversation around queer rights and queer identity and the politicization of queer identity and what that means for the real lives of queer people, particularly in the global south. So highly, highly, highly recommend book. Definitely one of my favorites for this month. Okay, so that is it. That is all the books that I read this month. I think there are 2 that are not here, but like I think I read those on my Kindle. They were just like random romances, so it's fine. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed making it, because even though it's like hot as hell outside. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel below. Comment anything you want to comment and let me know if you read any of these, if you like any of these, and look out for my next video, which should be up soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.